resurrected back to life. Done my time and served my sentence. Dress me up and watch me die. If it feels good, tastes good, it must be mine. Dynasty decapitated, you just might see a ghost tonight. And if you don't know now, you know. I'm taking back the crown. I'm all dressed up and naked. I see what's mine and take it.
All right, we are back with hell of a show on this one, and we have got a great guest tonight. Talk about a new project in the making, and this one's got my interest on here because of one particular character that's on there. We're going to delve into that one as well. Before we get started on that, if you will, please go ahead and share this out. Let's get the voice of the indies out there and let other people know what's going on in the spotlight and make that spotlight even brighter for everyone else. Now, before we get started on this, again, thank you everyone who has been a part of getting us to that milestone 100 show. If you think that that was as good as it could possibly get, keep watching, keep paying attention. Things are just going to get better from here on out. We've got a lot planned on what's going on through the pipeline, and we're not stopping anytime soon, including with my guest tonight and talking about the program that's going on. So that being said, I can't be the only pretty one up here, so let's go ahead and bring up Roy Johnson.
Hello.
What's up, Roy? Thanks for being on the show.
Hey, congratulations on your 100 episodes. It's a big step.
And I certainly appreciate it. It has been a rocky road getting there, but it is well worth it in the end.
That's right.
Very much so. It may seem like a small milestone for some, but for me, it's like getting to the top of the mountain and looking at the other bigger mountains over there going, yep, those are next.
Oh, the murder horn.
Exactly. Now, before we get started into everything on all this, let me go ahead and give you some time on this. Go ahead and say who you are, what you do, and what you're working on. Go ahead and give us your elevator pitch over there.
Okay. Well, my name is Roy Johnson. I typically have my own brand called Standard Comics. But in October, I'm teaming up with a bunch of other indie creators to provide a Halloween spooky spectacular where we've got sort of occult or spooky themed villains kind of teaming up to do something nasty. And some occult heroes banding together to stop them. Essentially, my character, Saint Samhain, is the head bad guy who's trying to consolidate power. He's zapping out into the multiverse to collect some items of power, kind of a thing. And hilarity and terror ensues.
See, I love that part right there. Hilarity and terror ensues, because it's not all about being just a horror book, being a comedy book. It's kind of got different elements in there that just make it fun and interactive is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of we're all sort of older creators, so there's not any 20-year-olds on the book. We're all old men with gray hair that are kind of the Bronze Age aesthetic is kind of probably our go-to thing, where the stories are fun but not goofy. And obviously the slant on this one is more on like obviously a Halloween theme, right? So hopefully it's going to be fun, and a bit spooky, maybe like an old Jim Aparo revenge seeking specter kind of a vibe to it.
Yeah, that actually sounds very interesting that you're actually attributing it to that. That even gets my attention even more than it did before. And again, that appeals to the older people that are out there who catch that reference.
Yeah.
People like me, because I'm sitting over here going, wow, I liked that. The other people who are, like you said, in their 20s, they're probably going, let me Google that one and find out what's going on.
Well, who's that? Yeah. But I mean, from that perspective, like a lot of indie creators, I don't think there is a specific age. It's all over the place with younger people breaking in and people maybe older that are like, well, I wish I had done that 20 years ago, but it's a lot more possible now with crowdfunding and with print on demand options to don't have to go through a monolithic publisher to bring a story into the world, right? So exactly. that happens to be our take, but we are a group of indie creators, which the indie community is kind of mutually supportive in that way, right? That it's of interest because it's not necessarily just from the big two, right? It's other other perspectives or whatever you want to call it, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's one thing I talk about on well, pretty much every show that I've ever done is the passion that's put into the indies. That's why I choose to really put the spotlight on here, is because the big two have, high rises dedicated to the marketing and the spotlights that they get to put on their products. Whenever you're an indie creator, you have to put that extra nth level into there, and if you don't, and the passion is not involved in it, then it gets overseen very easily because there's so much in the market. So you have to be a little more cautious about, you want to make sure that you put that just an extra push into it, get that extra little passion push into it.
Yeah, you've got to get something that gets the attention, and then the hard part, of course, is keep the quality up, so you're not resting on the laurels of that initial push, right? Where people are going, I like that one, I want to read the next one, right? Like,
right.
That fundamental idea that every comic is theoretically somebody's first, and it's the first of your run, right? So,
exactly.
So we're looking forward to it and working with. Not necessarily going to go through all the creators, but Alan Silverwood is the writer on it, who was a writer and editor at Marvel Comics back in the day. So he's kind of the spearheading the whole thing and providing it was his idea of, like, he wanted to do the kind of the spooky story thing, and saw a lot of different creators with those kind of character types, and I think for a lot of them it may be their first appearance too. I know it is for mine. I've got sort of the head bad guy in there, but yeah, it's an opportunity, of course, to bring new characters instead of the 5 millionth iteration of Spider-Man or whatever. But yeah, so he's writing that. The idea is this first one that'll be running on Kickstarter is like a 28-page type of a story, and then there'd be like a part 2 to wrap up sort of that mini arc, right? So you get kind of almost a done in one kind of story, but it's done in 2, right? So you get a bit of an arc and a bit of you don't have to wait for 3 years for the next issue of Astro City to come out, right?
Exactly. And the link that I've got down here that's running right now on the banner, that is actually the link for the pre-launch. We're still working on an exact date of whenever you're going to launch this thing, so keep in mind, get over there on the pre-launch so that you are made aware whenever this thing is going to go ahead and run, so you don't miss out on this project. It's interesting that I actually have you on here as a guest talking about this in this project, because I am all about the villains. Everybody knows that about me from everything that I've talked to about every guy that's up here, and every single creator that I've had. They always find out that I'm all about the villains. So it's really cool that you're mentioning about that, because your main character, Saint Samhain, I know how to say it.
Samhain, yeah.
Samhain, yes. It's right there on the tip of the tongue. But he's got an interesting look. Like, I haven't seen, the storyline of what's going on with this, the synopsis.
Yeah.
I know basics just because of what I've seen in artwork. With that character is one in particular, and we're going to show some other pictures that I've got to kind of show off as well, to kind of discuss about the characters. But it's a multi-universal thing. What was mentioned to me is that if you have the power to take the souls from one particular universe or whatever, you're pretty freaking powerful at that point. But if you're able to jump over and do the same thing, but then it domino effects to multiple universes, is there actually, is there a top to this? Is there, a ceiling to this where it's too much power? Or I'm just kind of curious on how that could go, because that could turn out to be beyond Thanos level, shall we say.
Well, I wouldn't comment on that even if I knew the answer, because I haven't seen sort of the ending point from a plot standpoint. That's all with Alan, but yeah, essentially it's my guy has got, as so many of these themed characters have, he's kind of got the jack-o'-lantern type of face, but it's a skull. So it's a skull with kind of that orange thing. And the idea, I think, with the history that I created with the character, was that he was operating in Great Britain, thousands of years ago, with the original Samhain time of the year, where the idea is that the veil between the living and the dead is at its low point, and it's sort of easy for him to lure people into his power and sort of collect their souls, right? That was the whole idea of this, sort of fictionalized Samhain approach, which I think was what Alin sort of sparked on, as being able to reach beyond just one universe. And then obviously because it's all these indie creators, we all have our own little universes. So that's the necessity for going out in the multiverse. And his first stop is actually defeating sort of alternate universe version of Dr. Spectral, who is Rodney Lockett's character, who's kind of like a Sorcerer Supreme, like a Dr. Fate, Dr. Strange kind of a guy. So the idea is Samhain kills this guy, or the alternate version of him, and he was sort of guarding that world's version of the Voynich manuscript, which is a real world thing that it was a hoax for money. That, it's a mysterious book, and why was it made, and who made it, and what is in it. And within the context of the story, it's like the Darkhold or something. It's a book holding great power that can enable him to expand his power into these other universes. So as he does, he's obviously opposed by the heroes of each one of those on his quest for power. And that's kind of the basis for the story, right? So there's horror and ghosts and goblins and things, and one of the sort of the ideas with the Kickstarter and the rewards package is that we would be offering, like, backers could get their character in a cameo in the book, right? One of it would be like, he just shows up as a ghost. He was defeated. His ghostly spirit is, popping up, doing whatever. Or it could be like a sort of a key role in the story. So you're actually, like one of our characters fighting for their multiverse kind of thing. And also, I think the current cover that we have has got our bad guys at the top and the good guys at the bottom. And then we've got a reward where it's would be maybe this layout or maybe something different, but would be sort of 10 backer cameos. So it could be their heroes or their villains, as long as they're kind of occult and spooky themed. And like the guy in the middle, the central with the orange face, that's Samhain, and to the right of him is Black O'Lantern, which is one of Alan's characters, which I think is really cool. He kind of reminds me of Jack O'Lantern from the Super Friends, if you're old enough to remember that, because he's got the purple and the white and the stuff. And the guy just below Samhain is Dr. Spectral that you were showing there a minute ago. And to the left of him is what is he called? Black Terror, Night Terror, who is sort of a updated Black Terror, if you're familiar with the old Golden Age guy. He's almost like a proto Punisher in his costume. He's got the black and white crossbones kind of thing. And to the left, the Spectral is Night Demon, who's kind of got these two enchanted pistols, guns that I think they're actually demons in and of themselves. And then the right of him, with the guy with the katana, is Doc Vampire, who is another old Golden Age public domain guy who's been sort of dusted off and refurbished. And above him is Mr. October by Andrew Rowland. It's one of my favorite indie guys. He's like he's kind of like a Batman. He's always doesn't have powers. He's got gimmicks, and they're all themed appropriately to Halloween. And above it, Mortis and Baron Lich and what's the other lantern guy's called? Jilo Lantern, I think. Yeah, I'm still learning. Who's doing what, and that's Doc Vampire.
Yeah, we got a few of these to show here that I was going to show, and we're going to get to my favorite one for specific reasons, of course. But we got Mr. October is here that you were talking about. That's the one that is kind of like the Batman.
Yep.
With the doesn't have the powers, but has the gadgets. Which he kind of reminds me of what's his name? Between a cross between Cloak and Red Hood. Or yeah.
Or even Hobgoblin.
Yes. And then you've got Night Terror, which looks very interesting. That's like a Black Knight looking thing right there, but it's got more spectral energy coming off of it.
Yeah, I like the blue pops the black, or pops against the black really well.
But this one,
that's Carlos Raphael's Night Demon. So he's the
Demon Phil, Night Demon. It had to have been. I mean, there's no way getting around that. But now you've told me that the actual guns are demons of themselves. It's kind of like, oh, this just got even more interesting.
Yeah. So Night Demon talks, and he talks to his guns, and his guns, talk to him, kind of thing. So be discovering what the extents of that are in the story, I would hope. And I think Night Demon has been kicking around for, I want to say, like 10 years in terms of, it's one of those kind of design it, put it in your toy box, and then when you get the chance to play with it, it comes out. But he's been in was it the New Remarkables? One of Carlos's books. So he's appeared once already. I can send you the link to when that's out on Indie Planet, kind of thing.
Yes.
So he's kind of a jackass, Night Demon. He's kind of a smart mouth, right? So that's kind of his personality, and he's not taking any names. He's just taking people down, really. So
exactly. Now, I want to go back to a point that you brought up just a while ago, because it's kind of a sore spot with me, actually. You were talking about the manuscript is not actually real, that it was a ploy, for money and everything. Next thing you're going to tell me is Blair Witch is not actually real. Like, is that what you're saying?
Did you hear that bullshit? Those people disappeared in the woods near Burkittsville in 1994, and to have you joke about it now is disrespectful to their memory. Yeah. Especially since her brother went looking for her just a few years ago, and that was not quite as good.
No, not quite as good. No.
Oh, we're time traveling in a circle with the batteries and whatever. But that was such an event, though. It wasn't just a movie, right? Like it was.
It was all about marketing. It was the way that they marketed it, and I was
brilliant.
One who fell into that because, as I recall, $20,000 is what it cost to make that movie, and they busted well over $20 million in the first weekend.
Oh yeah.
But they also even had, they had these documentaries that they were doing on History Channel type thing or whatever, talking about how real this is.
Yeah.
And then after opening weekend, and I'm one of these that bought a ticket and went and saw it in theater and everything, I will admit it. And that's whenever they come out with these real documentaries saying, this is fake. This never existed.
Yeah.
Why? And I'm looking at it going, how did you just yoink everybody like that?
That was the power of marketing. Like that was, I'm sure it wasn't the first internet viral whatever, but it was certainly the most successful butts in seats kind of thing. Like, I don't know if you're old enough to know about, like, the guys that created the movie. They were fans of In Search Of, which was like a documentary style Ripley's Believe It or Not or X-Files kind of thing, where people would, or I think it was Leonard Nimoy was hosting. It was like, In search of this week, in search of Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, so-and-so. And so they were very simple documentary style, all those giant, massive handheld cameras or whatever at the time. And it was just sort of, it was like that juxtaposition of the fantastic against the mundane, right? Where it's like, this is just a real camera going through the real woods, and we saw a Bigfoot over here, and that was like their real impetus for the movie and that marketing campaign of, we want to bring that feeling back of just of this creepiness of what is out there in the woods. And
exactly,
it's so much more effective than boo. Oh wow, a jump scare. I am so startled for 2 seconds, and now I go back to looking at my phone. I mean, that's not creepy. Is over a sustained thing is much more effective, right? It's like Stephen King wrote about like his, what is it, like the 3 types of horror or whatever, and one, I don't remember what, I think they're terror, horror, and revulsion. And terror is like the slow build up to what's in that rocking chair, and horror is the it's grandma with no face.
Yep.
And then the revulsion is the after we've watched the movie, right? And that terror is sort of the best, and the revulsion is the aftertaste, and the horror part is kind of the easy bit.
Yep.
And that's kind of what some horror movies now are, is just everything goes quiet, there's negative space in the frame, over here, and then a loud noise and a sudden movement. Oh wow, how great, I don't care. But so, which is, I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here, I guess, but
you're good.
That's why, like, I saw I was watching a reaction video. I have no idea why. They're like potato chips. I guess you start eating one and it's like, why don't I just watch the movie? Well, these are like a highlight reel. But somebody was doing a review their first time watching Blair Witch, and of course they are evaluating the movie as a piece of art, and they weren't particularly impressed.
Yep.
And I fully understand that. And at the same time, you and I watched it from the perspective of the hype, the original hype machine behind it, that was completely different than the typical Hollywood hype machine. It was more of a, wait, is this real? Is this what
right.
is? Like, I remember watching the first episode of the X-Files, and this guy was like, is this real? Is this based on the FBI really have? I'm like, no, it's just presented in a style that if it's, but if you got it, it doesn't seem ridiculous that 3 idiots got lost in the woods. Like, in real life, you follow the river downstream till you hit civilization, but in the movie, there's a witch doing stuff with their minds, right, to prevent them from doing the simplest things. So,
yep.
But it's kind of interesting how horror changes as a genre over time, I guess. But
exactly. And that kind of brings me back to, with your book and being the horror style that it is, and coming out the time of year that you have it and all, that's perfect for the timing for your book with this that you're working on with the other creators and everything on there. But how is that going to play out, moving forward? Are we going to have different holidays and different characters in there? Because I'm telling you right now, St. Patrick's Day, I'm all about that. Whenever we start throwing some leprechauns in there, I'm all over that one.
My leapfrog superhero will finally see the light of day. The villainous team based on the 1960s movie The Green Slime will ooze its way into everybody's hearts, or something. Well, I think at the moment the I like to have dreams, but I'm an engineer in real life, so stuff has to work. So this campaign has to launch, get funded, and be successful. And then there'd be a part 2 as to whether we would actually wait until next October. Doesn't seem likely, because the campaign runs for a month, right? And then we now have the funds to pay the artist to do the rest of the book. So then they need the time to do the thing. So it'd be a few months before it actually gets put together.
Right.
So you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Like, do you aim for delivery of a product in October, or do you aim for creating the buzz, if you will, in October? And we went with the buzz. So hopefully, the book's a big success, everybody goes yay, and we wrap up script of number 2, and we go figure out when we're gonna do that. As to other theme things, you got St. Patrick's Day, you got your President's Day. You could have a bunch of dead presidents. Washington with his wooden chompers, and I mean, Abraham Lincoln was a vampire hunter. I think that writes itself pretty much.
Exactly.
George Hancock, he wasn't a president, but he could, that quill pen, he could like rip your face clean off. So I don't know. You could always go with a dark Valentine's Day with some poison ivy-esque seductress type person running around, seducing people into their way of thinking, and you get a whole cult vibe thing going. I don't know. But
exactly.
Right now, it's the Halloween kind of idea, 1 and 2, and then we'll see where it goes.
I mean, there's all kinds of options and ways this could possibly go. And like you said, you want to look at the way right in front of you and just make sure that one gets funded and moves forward from there. It's got an interesting synopsis, being the fact that, it does have the power to not only take souls and power from one universe, but multiple universes at the same time by one event. So that can be, I mean, whenever you start thinking about that in terms of how much power that actually is, that can actually lead up there quite a bit. So it's interesting to see what kind of forces would go against something like that. So it's got my interest for sure. And I definitely can't wait to see this. And I definitely want to do a review on it whenever it comes out as well, and talk more about that. But it's definitely got enough potential, as far as I'm concerned, to show that it's got, some kind of forward motion on there to do that. So as long as it gets the forward motion where it hits the ground running once you launch, should be no problem there. As long as you tell everybody it's based on true events.
It's all true. If you've ever been out around the end of October, you'll notice a lot of decapitated pumpkin men with their faces carved open, and these people are on the team. So
there you go.
Use your brain, people.
I mean, you think they're wearing masks, but what if they're actually heroes and villains that are out there and they're just in plain sight? Come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I bet you could hide an alien under a ghost sheet.
Exactly. I mean, why not under a ghost sheet? Just right out in the open. I mean, nobody cares at that point. Everybody's just dressed up anyway.
That's what I do. I go out on Halloween without anything, and
exactly.
I just pop that off, and away I go. That would be the time to come out, really. If you're going your full demon form, just head out, get some candy.
There you go. Let the horns fly. Exactly. Now, you mentioned something that interested me just a while ago, and I got to kind of bring that up too, because you said that you were an engineer, correct?
Yep, civil engineer.
Well, I've got this interesting box that came in. I can't quite get it open. I wanted to see if you could help me get that open.
I can give you some super glue to keep it shut permanently. I've never actually seen Hellraiser.
Like none of them?
No. Well, I want to see the first one. It's not on Tubi. It's not on what. Like, can I bore you with my horror history briefly?
Go right ahead.
Okay, so I was born in '69, so I'm an old man. Back in the day, we used to have on the television, we had the 3 channels. So horror movies or any other movies would show up, like 2 or 3 years after a theatrical release, all butchered. Well, partly butchered because this was the 70s and no one cared. There's a decapitation. The kid is fine. He can watch that, whatever. So as a kid, I saw on TV. I saw The Exorcist, The Omen, not Rosemary's Baby, The Omen, Terry, Christine, Cujo, shit like that, right?
Right.
But it was horror was never my wheelhouse. I was more comedy, sci-fi. That was kind of my thing, right? And then I think in the mid 80s, late 80s, I don't know, was the advent of like the movie channel. I got the movie channel, and sometimes you get those free previews on the weekend. And I stayed up to some ridiculous hour to watch Friday the 13th, whichever the one in the barn is. the one that's mostly in the barn, and
Right.
that was kind of my first slasher movie, and it was quite scary because that was the first one. It was like, looking back now, it's ridiculous. And I had never seen Night of the Living Dead, and I didn't see Night first. I saw that the Return of the Living Dead, though not the George Romero one, the other half of his duo, and the nihilistic nature of the threat scared the shit out of me. Right, like, oh well, you just bang him in the head, right? And oh no, that's not working. You're cutting them up and it's not working. Like every horror movie, you've got Dracula, stake in the heart, you got the Wolfman, you got the Silver. This is like, what the hell is this? A nuclear strike. The nuclear strike is not working because it's raining. Oh my god.
Yep.
So that was like, and that Tar Man, that scared the crap out of me. But that horror wasn't really on my radar. And then horror dropped off my radar again until 10 years ago. And then it was like, well, that doesn't seem fair to the genre. I'm kind of not, I do the comedy and the science fiction and the action. Well, why not this? And then I just started getting systematically, okay, what do I got to watch the Halloween? I got to watch Friday the 13th. I got to watch But Hellraiser has just sort of not been, it's not streaming. It's not on Tubi. I don't know, I just haven't gotten to that one yet, kind of thing, right? And I'd really just want to see the first one because I think it's probably the only really great one, and the rest of them are all kind of imitations, more or less. Would you say lesser remakes or lesser?
It's an ongoing storyline. The arc is like ongoing throughout because there's 8 movies. Well, now 9 because of the newest one that just came out. But honestly, if you go 1 through 4, you get the gist of everything that you need in there, and you're good with that. And it basically ends everything really well because of 4.
Okay.
And they went on with 5 through 8, and you're kind of like, why?
Because of money.
And then they came out with this one, which I just did a review on this one, and I actually enjoyed it. I mean, I'm not going to go into spoilers and everything on there by any means for everyone else to be watching, but I actually enjoyed it because it's a different perspective in watching it. It is not a replacement. Don't get that wrong. Everybody's so upset because they're like, oh, quit remaking everything. This is not a remake. It's a continuation. But is it? It's almost like if it happened in a different universe or a different reality, is the way that it's set up. So I like the way they did it. I like the way they ran with it. And I'm going to give Jamie Clayton, which is the lead in there, Pinhead, she did an awesome job. She didn't have many lines in there, but she commanded the presence the way she needed to, because those are some pretty big pins to fill.
Is it kind of ambiguous as to whether it's a reboot, kind of like, is it structured in a way where you're like, well, it could be a reboot, redo, or it could be a redo, or it could be a continuation? Like, is it set to be as somewhat deliberately ambiguous in that?
You kind of look at it because with the first one, of course, coming out in '84, it's definitely got the '80s, vibe to it. So it has that retro feel. With this one, it definitely has the modern feel of now. It has the 2022 feel. So you can definitely see where this is actually a continuation. But then again, knowing how the timeline has gone throughout the other movies and everything, and how it's branched off in certain things because of different realities and the things that they open up like that, it has that opportunity as well. They kind of leave that open, and I like the way they leave it open. They don't actually answer it, and because people like me, I have that thing where I have to know how things work and what's going on, so they know they've got me to watch more of their movies or more TV shows. Sure. If they're coming out with them, I will be watching that stuff. Yeah,
well, you can't. I'm waiting on Hereditary too, but I don't know what would be in it.
Exactly.
Is that kind of your horror style too, or is that more?
Mine is kind of all over the place, to be honest. I don't care for the absolute gore. There's a couple of movies that I watch that have gore in there simply because of the psychological aspect that is tied to it. It can't be just where it's just strictly just the whole thing is nothing but blood just all over the place. That to me does nothing. I want to see something that makes me go, ugh, what was that that I heard around the door? What was that I heard upstairs? That kind of thing.
Where you have to check I'm a grown man, and I know it's just a movie. Let me see that door is locked completely. That's yeah.
Hey, I mean, truth be told, I will let you know right now. One of the scariest movies that I've seen, and it's only because of the situation, was The Grudge. And the reason I say that is because we had just moved into a house at the time, and the first thing that I always do whenever we move into a house is I always set up the surround sound because why not? I mean, you got to have boxes around and everything. Clothes, who needs clothes? You got to have surround sound. And at the time, and this is dating how old I am, Laserdisc. Yes, I said it out loud.
You couldn't get that on Betamax? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I had a good Laserdisc collection back in the day. But I bought Grudge whenever it came out on Laserdisc for some odd reason. I chose.
Was that the original Japanese one or the?
No, not Ju-on. I'm talking about Grudge.
Buffy?
I saw Ju-on after, and I was like, nope, not doing that again. But yeah, this was the American version of Grudge. But I waited until later in the evening because I was married at the time, had younger kids, and I'm in the living room, which is set off aside from the house and everything. I had the lights turned out so that nobody could really see what was going on in there. So it was basically just the TV doing it.
Yep.
With surround sound. And whenever that thing in the attic started making that noise and that thing there, it freaked me out because it's all around me in surround sound. And sure enough, guess what's right above me as I'm watching this thing is the flipping attic door to get up into the attic right above me in the living room. And I was like, nope, we ain't doing this. I don't think that Laserdisc actually survived after that night.
Fling it out. Some of those might be worth something because there's movies that are only on Laserdisc, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're not because obviously the studio's view of what needs to be made and our view of what needs to be made may be completely different, right? Like,
exactly.
There's only 200 people that want to see this movie. Well, it's not going to get put on Blu-ray, but if we crank it out for free.
Yep. No, I hear you. And it looks like we have got a surprise guest just jumped in here since we're going ahead and recording right now. Let me bring him up on here. Alan, go ahead and join us up on here.
How's it going?
What's going on, Alan?
Just a lot. keeping a lot of balls juggled in the air,
Hey, I hear you. That's no problem there. Well, we decided to go ahead and move forward. Roy and I have already been talking a little bit on here and going over some things. We've talked a little bit about the project. So we've gotten into some horror movies and talking about how the Blair Witch is actually real and not fake. We've gone ahead and put that that is to bed now. Roy said he's going to help me with a engineering project later on, so we're going to work on that one too. It's been a fun time while we've been up here. So go ahead and let us know, since I got you up on here, who are you, what do you do, and what are you working on? Go ahead and give us that elevator pitch.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I used to work for Marvel Comics. That's how I got my start in comics. I was on the editorial staff. If I sound a little funny, I had some surgery on my jaw earlier this year that I'm still recovering from, so it's a little bit awkward. But so I worked for Marvel Comics. I worked on Hulk, She-Hulk, Ghost Rider, G.I. Joe, and a few other special projects. And I did some freelance writing, a little bit of, short story stuff when I was there. By the way, I think the She-Hulk show is just fine. As someone who worked on the comic book, they're doing a fine job, I think. A lot of people, seems to be a lot of what would you call them? A lot of critics of that show, and it's like, no, it's actually, it's pretty much what I would have expected. I mean, yeah, I'd like a little bit more, of a streamlined storyline, but it's in there. It's just not.
Well, it was Marvel's way of giving you a break from having serious stories, and whereas people should be excited about Marvel changing up things a little bit and shaking it up, they get upset because they're like, a superhero is supposed to be a superhero at all times, and it's like, have you ever picked up a comic?
No. I mean, just give her a good cohesive storyline, and it's bounced around a little bit. And I'm like, I don't care if she's I don't care if we have a lot of superhero battles in this thing, but because it's just fun. But that would be my only critique, is that it's kind of like, where are we really going here, you know?
Right.
But other than that, I mean, I think everything's been done really well, and I think she does a great job of playing her. You know,
Yes.
there were a lot of complaints about the actress, and I think she's doing a great job. So, but anyway, so yeah, so I worked for Marvel Comics for those books, and for a while I did some freelance after that, and then I went to Hollywood before Marvel did, I like to say, because I went to Paramount Pictures and I started working on things there, and that was before Marvel ever came along and started having hit movies, you know. Um, so I worked for Hollywood for a few years, and then I wound up working in toys, working for Hot Wheels for the last 20 years, doing some writing for them, and then I started turning out novels, which I kind of got hung up on due to physical problems and due to the pandemic.
Mhm.
But in the meantime, I started putting out my comic books that I'd always wanted to put out. So I've got a couple of comic books out in my Spies Among Us series. Um, and I've got a steampunk comic just about ready to come out. I've been kind of holding back on it. And then I had this idea because I started looking it around. I was talking to a lot of the indie creators that I admire, like Roy here, and I was looking at some of their characters and stuff, and some of the characters I had, and I'm going, we've got a lot of characters here that really fit Halloween, and people love Halloween. And I'm like, and horror comics, yeah, we love them, right?
Oh yeah.
And so I kind of just shot a few, what was it, like these private messages, Roy, that I started shooting out and kind of asking guys, it's like, would you be interested in throwing some characters together for a Halloween, kind of a Halloween villain kind of and hero kind of Halloween sort of a special thing? And yeah, so fortunately, several guys got back to me with characters that they're fun and they're amazing, and they're some of them are terrifying, some of them are kind of funny, but it's all going to work. And so we've been kind of working on putting this project together so that we could launch it, by Halloween, and people will be thinking about it at that time. So we found in 2019, I happened to go to Dublin where my cousin was living at the time, and I went to, there just happened to be a Dublin Comic Con going on. I think it was like their first or something, and they were all excited about it. It was really tiny, compared to what I would think of over here. But I was like, well, there's a Comic Con, I'm going in, So I went in, I checked it out, and I walked around, I looked around. There was this kid at this table, and he had this really neat character on the banner behind him. And I thought, took a look at his art, and I'm like, going, this guy's got the kind of raw potential that you don't usually see every day. So I kept in touch with him. I'm like, let's stay in touch and see if we can find something to do together sometime. The kid's name is Reese Hannigan. And that we've already shown the cover that he's drawn.
Mhm.
He's working on interior pages, and he's fantastic. He's even better now than he was when I first saw his stuff in 2019. It's like he's still improving, and it's like, this is great. And he's already this great, and he's still improving. So it's like, this is gonna be amazing. And I've seen some of the interior art that he's working on, and it's impressive.
Very cool. And we've been talking about some of the different characters and talking about the general synopsis of what's going on with this, and kind of going over the fact that it's very villain based, whereas it has the heroes in there. So it's almost like it's a flip where your villains are the ones. I mean, I root for the villains all the time anyway, but
Right.
it just seems like one of those that you would root for the villains, and the heroes are in there just kind of getting in the way at some point. Is the way I look at it from this standpoint so far. I mean, I cannot wait to have this thing in my hand so I can review it and actually look at it and do that for you as well. But it definitely has a different feel to it. It doesn't have your normal cookie cutter feel, and that's something that I definitely enjoy. And we mentioned also about putting the passion into the indies side of things, because with Marvel, with DC, they have their own marketing staff. I mean, they have high rises dedicated to this kind of stuff and everything. With indies, you don't. So if you don't go that extra mile and put that extra passion into there, it falls dry. And
Yeah.
yours doesn't seem to be wanting to fall dry on this one. It looks like so far, with what I've seen so far that's being put out there, it's got great potential to move on past this first book and move forward. I can definitely see where this could get funded and get moved on from here, and definitely get that second book out. And then there's no limit to what you can do from there.
Yeah, I mean, initially we were conceiving it as a 2-part story, but it's like, who knows? I mean, I think we'd be open to, whatever. I mean, Roy's character, when he came in with his character, it just said to me, it's like, this is our Doctor Doom, only only more cosmic. This is like the guy that you want to focus on, and you want the story to be, kind of like he's the driver of the story. He's the thing that basically makes everything else happen. He's the architect of everything that happens, and it was like that. It was just a great character. And then the other great characters that came in, and I'm like, I can see how I can play them into this, and it's like how to use them. And it just becomes a really kind of a fun and different way to do a horror comic. And it's like, yeah, okay, we're going to, we're going to get some typical things in there, ghosts and stuff like that. I was kind of looking back at some of the old comics, like there's an old Seven Soldiers of Victory,
Mm-hmm.
Seven Soldiers of Victory story that was, these guys that were lost through time, kind of scattered through time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, let me play with that a little bit, because part of this is breaking the veil. It's not just the veil between life and death, but in this case, it's being able to break through the veil to other universes as well, which gives him access to more souls, infinite souls.
Right.
Hence the title. And I'm like, okay, so we got these heroes that are going to go after him, and it's like, well, what happens if they get thrown off into these different, possibly and potentially already dying, or dead universes, and there's something that he's trying to get a hold of, and he's got his minions out there trying to get hold of it, and then there's these heroes trying to stop it. So there's maybe all of these little conflict points in these different universes where it's like, we don't know what's going to happen, and then what happens when whoever wins out on that battle, what happens then? What's the next step? So that's probably I mean, obviously, if we're doing this in 2 parts, we'll probably leave a cliffhanger. I'll tell people that up front. It's like, this is a 2-parter, so don't expect the story to wrap up in one issue.
Right.
That would be misleading. I don't want to be misleading about that.
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah. And it seems like there's a lot of story just from the general synopsis that you can see where it's like, okay, it couldn't go to just 2 issues on here and be completely done. It would leave things to the open imagination that would be like, okay, if you want it bad enough, let us know and we'll try to work on something from there.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is that it really lends itself. And here's what's funny. There were a lot of guys that, of course, I didn't know had Halloween themed or horror themed characters that would fit. And they just didn't know about the project as it was forming. And now, as we're starting to show stuff around, I'm hearing from a lot of guys going, "Oh man, I got a perfect character for that," or "I've got, I want." And so it's like, so obviously we're opening it up to cameos. It's like, let's bring some of these guys in, and I'm like, oh, and part of what I was thinking about with the story actually really lends itself to some of these cameos being, walk-on roles.
Right.
And it's like, well, let's give them a bigger role. If we get the right, guys buying those spots, those cameos, it's going to be pretty interesting.
Oh yeah. And it sounds like it. And I definitely, trust me, I know enough people in the indie side that my brain's already going, wow, I'd love to see this character, that character, do that, where they have at least a walk-on role on there. Oh, it would be cool to even see them as, a conglomerate cover where they're actually showing up on there with some of your characters you've already got on there, just to kind of show that bridge between all of the indie creators. That's another thing that I really love about this project is it's not just a single creation. This is a conglomerate of different people getting involved and then it giving life from there.
Yeah, we've got characters from various creators, and then by the time we're done with the campaign, hopefully we'll have a lot of characters from a lot of creators. And yeah, that is one of our plans, is to do a cover. So
Very cool.
That is
Now,
on the plate.
what has been one of your biggest obstacles since you've gone ahead and started this project up? What has been one of your biggest obstacles in getting it from point A to point whatever Kickstarter calls their Z or wherever you are on that?
on this project, we had to find the right artist. We found a guy that was great who did our pinups, and he's great. But then the pandemic hit. No, actually not. It wasn't that long ago, was it? My mind gets a little screwed up because I actually had 2 surgeries this year. My health issues have been my biggest problem.
Mm-hmm.
I've just had a horrible year of trying to kind of like get myself healthy, and that started, more than a year ago, and I wound up resulting in me having a couple of surgeries this year, so that didn't help things.
Right.
But we did have a long delay where we were kind of like looking around, going, well, we've got to have artists for this, and then we've got to have commission artists, and it's like we've got to figure out, well, how do we do the rewards? How do we do, how do we divide all this stuff up?
Right.
Who's going to do what, that kind of thing. So it's like, when you work with a team, it's like, this is a little bit newer for me. Roy's done a little bit of that. So thankfully Roy has really been kind of a saving grace for us, because he's got that experience, and he really knows what he's doing, and he understands how to work some of these things that having only done my own things, I haven't really done this as a group thing. So it's like kind of my first trial run as working with a group. So
that's the first big obstacle, is that you're taking whatever it is, 8 people who haven't worked as a team yet.
Yep.
It's a bit like herding cats, right? Like you've got to,
yes, exactly.
like Alan and Carlos are on the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
So they're in one time zone. I'm in like Toronto area, so I'm Eastern Standard Time. Mike is in England. He's in the UK. So it's kind of a challenge just to sit and chat at the same time. So that's the first big obstacle is first of all, Alan has to identify what are the characters, who are the people, how do I get in touch with them? Are they available? Are they interested? And then it's like the same as every honeymoon phase of, oh yeah, yay, we're making a comic. Are you committed to making this comic? Are you going to be on for the long haul? Are you going to contribute to discussions? Are you going to help make decisions on who the artists are, what the rewards are going to be? There's the making the comic, which is Alan's writing it, so he's got a control over that, where he's not dependent on us until we start bitching about dialogue. You think my character can't wait?
Yeah, and I'm trying to
whatever.
Up front, but so
and that's like an untested thing, right? It's not like Alan could go grab a stack of a dozen comics featuring all these characters to get a sense of who they are, right? He's got. I do like DC Who's Who profiles for mine, even if they haven't appeared. So there's at least a name, a look, an origin, and a fake history and some powers.
Yeah,
but dialogue isn't a thing that I would really put in it. So
gave me the best stuff, stuff to go on.
So I assaulted Alan with some vague ideas that I had about, oh, he might talk like this or that or whatever. But Alan, but at that sense, he is the writer with input from us.
Right.
It's not like every time he wants to write the next line, he has to ask, hey, really, what do you think? Like he's in control of that. But doing the organizing of the thing, what rewards do you want? I don't know. Okay, that's not really helpful. I need, how about an idea? And then you have to get sort of 8 people to agree on the thing and implement the thing. And then, the fulfillment of if the Kickstarter is successful, and of course it'll be fucking successful. We'll make millions of dollars. Once that's done, then in a way, the real work starts, because the artist has to now sit down and draw all the remaining stuff, and the colorist has to do their thing, and the letterer and there has to be a thing, and then we all have to review it. But like once the book itself is done, which is its own set of challenges, the Kickstarter is pretty much, hey, Kablam, here's what we need 20 copies of this and 100 copies of that and 5 copies, and they go and they do the stuff.
Yep.
They fulfill it. There's no extra fees, whatever, because that's what they do every day. Is they do print on demand comics and they pack them up and they ship them out. So there are people that want to do all that themselves who I think are crazy people, because even at minimum wage, I don't want to be. I got stuff to do. Like my couch needs to be held down at all times, or it could run from my apartment. So I have to be here to make sure that it's okay. I don't have time to be packing stuff up. So like there's the challenge of the making the comic, and then there's the challenge of the crowdfunding and fulfillment of the comic. But the actual, and they bring their own challenges, right? Because as he says, we got to get 8 people together and agree on a thing. And perfect is the enemy of the done. So
Right.
if you're at 85% happy, hey, great, we're done now. Let's move on to the next thing. And then the Kickstarter is its own beast, which is, being on shows like this is critical for just 2 new people know that this project exists, and one of them might be interested, or 150 or whatever it is because it doesn't matter. It's that Field of Dreams is bullshit, right? You build it, ain't nobody coming unless you put some signs up. So
Exactly.
come join the party, come have fun. Maybe you get your characters in, and we've got a bunch of creators working together to create an entertaining story and to get it into people's hands, as opposed to a lot of people will, no offense, they'll talk about doing something for years and years and years. And while if they put half the energy they spent talking into doing, they'd be done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like me with losing weight, I can talk about it a lot, but I'm never going to do anything about it. And that's the sad thing, the state of affairs. But sorry, that was like that's the big challenge, is you've got 8 people. You've got to get like working together to get it done.
Yeah, and hopefully all 8 of them will help bring in a bigger base
Right.
of eyes, because I mean I alone do not have enough reach. I don't have that kind of name or clout yet, but also, it's like, yeah, but along the way, I mean, the first thing I did when we started talking about this is I gathered everybody's characters that were going to be a part of this thing, and I got all the reference I could from them, and I went out and I got a guy to draw us a really good reference image of each of these guys, so we had a really good picture of them.
Right.
I mean, I did that right away. I didn't waste any time. I got that together. So, like, okay, now I'm looking at these guys, really good image of these guys. And then, sometimes some of the guys will fall asleep along the way. It's like, and it comes back to like, well, I thought we were doing this. It's like, no, we already discussed that. That's already a thing of the past. It's like, you don't want to do the whole circles thing, but
Facebook Messenger was not designed for project management.
No, it's really not the best. No, it's like, yeah, you have to scroll up for 20 minutes to find where we talked about something when we first started. And then, of course, I find it, to me, I have a responsibility to each of the creators as I'm writing this, to give their characters a good showing. And I also have a responsibility to the backers and the readers to give them a good tale. So trying to make sure that I'm covering both of those things is my challenge.
Right. And that makes a lot of sense, because you've got a lot being funneled your way, and it's a lot of different information, a lot of different perspectives, different views on there. And then for it to come out in your perspective that you want to show, from your writing perspective on there, it takes a lot to get that out of all of the other 7 on there to come out of you to be where it's actually readable at that point.
Yeah, well, so far I've been really lucky though, as I've reached out to everybody and talked to them about like, would your character be like this, or could he be like that, or say this, or talk like this, or whatever. It's like as I've reached out to everybody, they pretty much come back with with a pretty agreeable, like it's like yes, that works exactly, or yes, you got him perfect. That's perfect. It's exactly right. It's like you've nailed it. So I'm like, okay, so I feel like I got the characters pretty good. Um, and that's part of the thing. It's like if I know how the characters should be, then I know how to put the story together so that it works with those characters and what those characters would do, potentially do in this story, in this situation,
Okay.
or what we could, see them doing in this situation.
Right. Now,
Which,
one of the final questions that I want to ask and kind of get both of y'all involved in this one is there's a lot of conversation about people doing crowdfunding, doing projects, whatever, and it being more creator based. That it's reaching that market harder than it is fan base. So my question is, how do you go ahead? How do you feel that you need to bridge that gap to make it sure it's actually fan based and creator based, so you get both of them involved?
well, I've tried reaching out to like horror fans and stuff, fans of horror and horror you're looking for comic fans, you're looking for fans of horror and stuff like that. They don't have to be creators, but I'm looking to find ways to reach those guys and show them the stuff, so getting a little bit of that out, trying to find that and share things with those groups, is one of the approaches that I'm working on. But it's like you don't always know all the groups. It's like if you're working through Facebook, you don't know the groups. You can throw it on Instagram and hashtag the crap out of it, though.
Yeah.
And that sometimes can be a lot more effective. Some of these guys might trip across it. Some people who aren't even. I was at a haunted mansion. I was at a haunted mansion burlesque show, but a burlesque show based on the haunted mansion. Been a big fan of the haunted mansion my whole life. I was at a show that was based on that this weekend, and I was sitting next to somebody, and we were talking, and I told them, I'm a comic creator, and whatever, and I was like, actually, I'm working on something Halloween based. It's like some of this was like, just perfect inspiration for me to just kind of like keep my mind in the spirit world, and they're like, what are you working on? And I showed them the cover, and she's like, let me get that down. What's that called? She said right now. I'm like going, okay, see, basically anybody just getting a look at this, and then me giving them a little elevator pitch about what's happening. She's like, I got you. I got what's happening. I got that. Okay. So she wrote it down. Now, will she show up, when the time comes? We don't know. But, I think there's a very big audience for something like this, much bigger than we would normally think. It's just, I have not I have not fully learned yet how to do my own reaching out, obviously coming from someplace like Marvel Comics and stuff, I didn't have to worry about that, but doing my own things, it's like, it just is me. It's another story. And I haven't really learned quite how to do that as well as I want to or need to. So part of that is me hoping that, with the group of guys who've done some more of this stuff a little bit, we'll get exponentially further out with the word.
Oh yeah, you want to hit those target markets, and the more fingers that you have out there branching that out, you'll be able to hit a few more that way as well.
Yeah. I mean, trying to figure out where to find them, and what they are, what they're called, how to get in front of them without, and a lot of people now really take offense at. You can't just show up and say, "Hey, I've got a project going on Kickstarter." People don't really like that,
Yeah.
It's like, even if it's something that they'd be interested in, I'm like, that I don't really understand, because if like somebody comes into a group I'm in and just flashes something that I'm interested in, I'm like, hey, cool, I'm interested.
Right.
But some of these groups are kind of like, no, they don't like you to do that. And it's like, but why? If it's really applicable to the group, I don't get that. But but the rules are the rules.
Too many Karens. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I missed.
No, what do you have to add on to that, Roy?
Well, that's kind of the perennial challenge from, if you look at it, Facebook perspective. It's much easier to reach other creators than to reach fans.
Yep.
Because in part, creator groups are, hey, let's all network and blah, blah, blah. So you're just talking to the same 20 people who pass around a $20 bill to everybody's Kickstarter campaign. And the groups that are like, Bronze Age comics or superhero comics or horror, no soliciting.
Right.
Okay. Well, okay. So it's more of a long-term process of establishing and building a fan base. I don't understand the difference between a page, a group, and a whatever anymore. Their Facebook is run by morons. So I can put a heading and capitalize stuff on a page or a group, but not a page, but not my own personal page. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's stupid. So it's a long-term game of connecting with, becoming friends with people with similar interests. And then from my perspective, I typically am only selling, I've got like 120 backers per campaign that are not all the same people. So I typically, when I launch a new one, I reach out to them. I do an update on old projects. And say, I've got the new one coming out and it's this, that, and the other thing. And I've got whatever it is, 1,200 people on a mailing list that are, but most of those I think skew towards superhero comics because that's what I've sort of cultivated, right? So there's obviously going to be like, a Venn diagram overlap of horror comic fans and superhero,
Right.
but it's not going to be like 120 people, right? So it's Alan's run Kickstarters, I've run Kickstarters, Rodney and Carlos have run Kickstarters. So there's a potential, if each of those is whatever, 150, that's 600 people. If half of them are interested, that's 300. And if half of them back, that's 100, and then plus whatever new people come along on the basis of being horror. So it's the perennial challenge is to get it in front of fans as opposed to creators. And the reality is there's no quick fix for that.
Right.
It's a building an audience, and then that building the audience is two-pronged, right? One is you're producing a quality product that they want to read more of, and two, it doesn't take you 20 years to fulfill a Kickstarter because my artist is I don't care. There's problems in real life, and those problems have to be dealt with. But at the end of the day, I've agreed to do a thing to a certain level of quality, to a deadline, which quite frankly I've made quite far out to account for, the global supply chain issues and unforeseeables, and a commitment just to people putting their money in. I've got to respond regardless of whatever Kickstarter's policy of refunds can't be expected. It's like, yeah, whatever. I'm delivering the product.
Right.
Yeah, my policy too.
I'm going to get it done.
Yeah, it's like I'm not putting anything on there that I can't feel that I'm going to be able to deliver. And it's like I've only done it, 2, 3, but I delivered. I'm like I'm not going to put it up unless I can deliver it. And it's like if I didn't feel like what we start here can't be finished, then I wouldn't be in it.
Excellent. Now, I'm going to ask you both a question on here, and this is going to kind of finish it off for the show tonight. But the question I'm going to ask is, what is it about this project that makes it a passion project for you that everyone else should go ahead and pay attention to and try to make it like in 5 minutes or less type thing? It's like an elevator pitch, but very centered on the question. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll start off. I'm going to start off with Roy on this one. We'll start with Roy.
Well, to be honest, it's got a professional writer writing my character, as opposed to me, who is I guess I'm professional in the sense that I get paid via the Kickstarters, but I'm not primarily a writer as a human being. That is not my key thing. I'm more of a problem solver, and on the other side of it is the imagination thing. But it's so gratifying and cool to see something you created in your head, manifest in the real world. Like if you're a carpenter and you design the table and you build the table and there's the table, nice, right? And with engineering, it's a similar concept. You've got problem solving and imagination and a conception of an end product, and then you produce it. So the fact that it's 8 creators with a bunch of cool characters, I didn't have to create them all. I only created one. And then you got somebody who's like Alan, who's able to take all of those and mold them, like clay, into the finished thing from a storytelling point of view. And then the other half is, of course, the artist, who's got sort of this. How would you describe his style? It's kind of like an inky.
He's got that nice sharp style that's just off of cartoony. It's who was it that he was saying that he was, when I first met him, he's like he kind of wanted to emulate someone. I think it was like Brett Booth or something. And now he's into like Dan Mora. And I'm like, well, he's picking good guys too.
Or like Kelly Jones on Batman. It's kind of it's just a creepy looking.
He's got a little bit of that going for this. Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely trying to catch the feel. That's what I think is awesome, is that he's really flexible in that he's using this style, a great style, and then still kind of catching the feel. I told him, I said, I would love to see some Bernie Wrightson in there, or Gene Colan, it's like, that kind of stuff. But I'm sure he's got it down. What I'm seeing is just like, it's like, oh man, you're really nailing the ambiance of this, the heaviness of it. He's like, yeah, it's pretty heavy and dark. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, in some ways. Now, I'm sorry, did I cut you off? I didn't.
Oh no, you're good.
For me, I mean, my passion came to this thing is that I'm a person who's, like I was just talking about, my love for the Haunted Mansion. I'm looking around my desk at all the Haunted Mansion paraphernalia. I've been a nut about ghosts my whole life. Not necessarily horror in the traditional sense, but ghosts especially, ghost type of things. So ghostly characters. And Halloween really kind of plays into that. And, again, looking around at all these characters. The other thing is I've always been into superheroes. And it's like, well, this is where the two worlds intersect, You think about the few characters where that really happens, like somebody like the Spectre, or like what, Dead Man or something, where you're dealing with supernatural and superheroes.
Yep.
As kind of intersecting as one. And I'm like, this is just there's always so much potential there. I always feel like it's underused even by the big two companies. They do stuff, but they don't really seem to ever do it successfully for very long. You don't see a lot of success with their supernatural superhero type of thing. I mean, name somebody who's really, from either Marvel or DC, who's been wildly successful in the supernatural superhero kind of a thing. And it's like, I can't think of anyone, I mean, Doctor Strange is kind of more magic. I think of him. He's an occultist, but it's like, right. It's kind of more magic, but in a superhero-y thing. So it's kind of like, well, that's like wizards and superheroes crossing. And I'm like, but what about like ghosts and superhero crossing? It's like, well, there's never been a, I mean, it's like, how long is it? Not currently. I shouldn't say never, because if you go back far enough, there was stuff. I mean, the Spectre, I think he ran in his own book for years, right? Mm-hmm. If you go far enough back, but like currently, it's like, I can't really think of anybody. And it's like, it's maybe it's slipping my mind, but like right now, I mean, I know they just did like a Justice League Dark or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't, I remember trying to read like first couple issues and I'm going, this isn't really what I'm looking for,
Right.
I thought, well, now this might be something more. I want this to be something that's more like that. That's like this is really a melding of throwing superheroes into the supernatural, and supervillains,
Oh yeah.
and seeing if I can make that seamless in a way, if possible. And if not, then maybe there's an opportunity for a moment of humor, which I love. In the middle of something dark, and there's a moment of humor. It's like I love when that happens. If it happens organically, it's great. There's definitely potential for that with a couple of our characters. That just some interplay could be really fun. So even the characterization, I'm thinking how to bleed that into this feeling of a melding of the two types of world, and it's just fun. It's fun, and I get to play in a sandbox with all these really cool characters that I didn't have to create, except for a couple of them. I've got a couple in there that I did. It just looks fun. It looks bizarre, and that's what it is. Fun and bizarre, and it's a good adventure.
And it definitely has my attention. And like I've already said, I'm definitely looking forward to getting my copy so I can review this thing, because I want to delve into it and really look and see exactly how you were able to take all these different characters and give them the fluidity that's going to be in there, that's going to have it where it's an actual page turner, where it makes it where, I want more in reading it. And I know that your overall goal going in through this, and I can't wait to see that potential to come out in there with that, because I can already see y'all have enough passion going into this. So I can't see why that would not be an option, reading into it and getting to that point. So whenever you're watching this, definitely go over there and check out the campaign. And this is the link right here for the pre-launch. So you can go over there if it hasn't launched as of yet, because we're still waiting on a launch date for this. But that way you'll be notified whenever it is launched. But even if it is, you can click on this link, which will be embedded in all the different feeds. I'll have this on here, and it'll take you directly to their campaign, and you can get involved from there. And reach out to these guys and let them know what you think about the campaign, for one thing. Comment on there. They love hearing what people want to say about it. But on top of that, and I cannot stress this enough, not everyone can financially support everything. We all know this, but it costs absolutely nothing to use the power of the finger to go ahead and hit that share button and share this out so that more people have an opportunity to get involved in this. So that's the biggest thing right there, is anybody can go ahead and hit share on there, and it costs you absolutely nothing. And if you go ahead and back it, which you should, by the way, go ahead and hit that share button as well, so it gets to even more people that way as well. You can't support it enough in that way to really help them out by hitting that share button. I cannot stress that enough. I don't know how exactly to explain that. It hits algorithms. Yes, it does. It triggers other target markets. Yes, it does. But here's the big thing. These are creators that are here, and it helps their morale a little bit more. They're looking at it like, wow, they actually enjoy this so much. They're not only, looking at it to purchase the product or whatever, but they're sharing it out to make sure other people are aware of what's going on. Sometimes that's what we need to do, is to help them out with that, is a big help to what they're doing. So again, use the power of that finger, hit the share button on whatever you're doing, help them out with this project, get the thing going. And I look forward to seeing how far this project is definitely going to be going on the first book, because I know we're getting to the second one. It's a done deal. It's going to happen.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, Phil.
Hey, no problem at all. I have enjoyed having y'all both on here. It has been an honor having y'all on here. Please, by all means, on my Facebook, Dark Entertainment and DemoNation, and we can talk about this in Messenger as well, so I can give you the exact links. Please feel free to go ahead and post your stuff on there. I have no problem with that. I am not one of those group and page owners that goes, no, you can't do that. You're not doing anything else, so don't post it. No, I don't care. As long as it's not causing any kind of trolling or anything, I don't care. I'm not a Karen, and I don't promote the Karens. Therefore, it's a non-Karen facility. That's how we run things. So I definitely have no problem with you posting on there. And if anyone else has problems with you posting on other places, honestly, I've done that in the past, and it's made it to where I've gone ahead and learned to go ahead and no longer be a part of their community, because if they're not going to allow that, I don't know. Especially whenever they're allowing other ones to do it, but not some other ones. That's the gatekeeping that we don't want to go ahead and promote on that end. But y'all have got a great project. You've got a great passion project, should I say, that you're working on with this. I cannot wait to see this to absolute fulfillment. I cannot wait to see the future of what's going on with this. And I definitely want to see more works from both of you on your works separately as well, to see, because I want to see how the cogs work outside of the machine. It's one thing to see how they're working in the machine and how they move an aerial, but it's great to see outside of the machine and see how things were put together in the very first place. So again, thank y'all very much for being on here. I certainly appreciate it. And we're looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with the campaign. And please, please, please keep me posted and let me know what I can do to help in the meantime. And I will be more than happy to help with whatever I can.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thanks,
I'm going to go ahead and drop y'all backstage, do my outro on this. And if y'all want to hang out, we can talk in just a moment. Whenever I get done, y'all can let me know, if I did okay, or if I should, quit doing my passion project for the rest of my life because I suck at this. Whatever you guys talk about, I'm good with that. All right, I'll be out there in just a moment.
Okay.
All right, so we had a great show on here. We had a couple of great creators on here, Roy Johnson, Alin Silverwood on here talking about the project that's going to be coming up. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. This thing it's got a lot of moving cogs, a lot of moving pieces in here, and a lot of things that give it a lot more potential to have a bigger side of growth to it, shall we say. But Infinite Souls is definitely one that you want to pay attention to whenever it comes out. Like I said, the links to this will be embedded in, so you can follow that, no problem. Now, as everyone knows, watching my shows in the past, I always have a closing statement on my shows. Tonight is not any different. It's based on my guest on here and something that was said on here that kind of triggered me to go off on a little closing tangent, shall we say. That being said, it's all about the collectiveness. We're going to use that word, collectiveness. The reason I chose that one is because we're taking different opinions, different views, different perspectives, different writing styles, different character looks, different, everything, and putting it all together, throwing it into a blender, hitting puree on that thing, and then coming up with something that's actually going to be a page turner in that. The whole point of this is, don't always think that just because you have something that is working for you or may not be working for you, it's two sides of the coin, that there's not going to be something where you can actually work with others within the industry to go ahead and get that collectiveness together and see if those cogs can work as well as a team together with that as it is with this particular project here. So with that, I will leave you with just a quick couple of words here. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for watching. Hell of a Show is now past 100 episodes. We are extremely excited and happy about that. We have got some great guests on the horizon that'll be coming up. Don't miss any of these. Don't miss a thing that's going on. You definitely want to go ahead and keep on track of what's happening on here. So please remember to like, subscribe, and share today. Subscribing to my YouTube channel will definitely make it where you don't miss any of the content. You don't want to miss that. There's so much content coming out and so much new content that is on the horizon that you definitely don't want to miss either. If you haven't heard about some of that, just pay attention. It's coming. And that is Hell of a Show for tonight. Thank you very much for being here. We certainly appreciate it, and looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Until then, keep it indie, y'all.
Sockets, flip the switch and watch them run. Oh!